I want to comment on the thing with tiny houses, um, which is a great thing, but also problematic. You're being conditioned to live small, and by that I mean never having a big, nice house, never owning your, like things like I have a sailing boat. Um, Maybe never even having buying a car. You're being conditioned to live small, and this ties into that slogan that we have all heard that comes from the World Economic Forum. How is it? How does it go? You will own nothing and you will be happy. I'm not so sure about the happy part of that slogan, but it seems like people are not in a position where they can own stuff. So we will talk a little bit about that. And I want to thank someone, I can't remember the name, but this just popped up in my mind. Someone commented, wrote something about tiny houses. Must have been at least a year ago. Um, so I have a few minutes to spare here now, so we can talk about that. KP Hidden, Carola, Majid, and Sweet Polly. Um, Good to see you all. I am aware that this is not a trending topic. I don't care about that. When I wrote the title for this live stream, I thought I really should make it like, you won't believe what they are planning for you next, the elites, or something like that. But I don't do sensationalism here, so that's just not going to happen. Yeah. First of all, I will say that I fully support the trend where people live in a tiny house, in a van, in a boat. I fully support that given the economic circumstances for most people. I think that has to do with freedom. And the one single biggest threat for freedom is, difficult word for me as Norwegian, debt. Debt. Why is there a B there? There shouldn't be any B there. DEBT, debt. Wow, somewhere in the Rockies. Thank you so much for that donation. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah, so going down that path with, getting into debt to buy a house and all of that. If you do that, I did that. I don't have debt now, but well, I have some, but that's more a financial. That's an investment thing. But if you do that, at least be aware that it does infringe on your freedom. The problem here is that our depending on your age, I will say your grandparents, maybe your parents, even if you're somewhat older, they could have one income in the family, one income in the household, and they could buy a nice house in the suburbs. I'm saying suburbs. That's like not some places that's not a nice place, but in a nice place, they could buy a house with a little garden, one income, and typically the mother would be at home with the kids, which, at least for the kids, was a good thing. And many people want to get back to that. But now that we have a very different economy, a tax driven, we have tax driven, um, what should we say, societies. That's, they are tax driven. And by the way, the second biggest threat to your freedom is actually taxes. Now, that doesn't sit well with socialists out there. But when I look at my personal finances, my biggest problem is taxes. Now, I live in Norway and we have taxes so high that it's laughable. I've actually laughed about it several times. So has my accountant. It's laughable. But for most people now, if you're like 20 years old now, at least in Europe, I don't know about the USA, it's probably the same or worse. Um, you can't buy a house, you can't buy a flat unless you have rich parents. It's just not, you can't do it. It's not possible. Um, well, unless you buy some, well, of course, you can move to Norway and buy a very cheap house up north, but then you would have a problem with getting a job there. That's the reason why people move away from those places. So I just want to, complain a little bit about the situation because I think that young people should be in the following position. If you have been studying to get a degree and you get a job, you should then be able to buy a house. And you shouldn't be struggling every month because of your mortgage. And there should be like, a family should be able to have a good quality of life with only one income. That's how it should be, but it's not like that now. I mean, there are people out there saying that the best trick that the governments pulled on us was feminism. I don't think that it's that simple, but at least it did create an economy where each household, each family had two incomes to tax, you know, which then led to increased governmental spending and a lot more waste of that spending. Now that's a fact that can't really be argued against. Um, so I don't think we will ever get, well, never say never, but I don't think we will get back um, to that system or that way of living again. Not with the present governments and the present system, at least. But I think it's a better way to live. Um, it's better for the kids, at least. Um, and I have spoken with, of course, many women up through the years. This is something that, at least here in Norway, people talk about. And I will say a majority of the women I have spoken with about this are saying that if they could have chosen, they would not have been working when their kids were small. Like the first few years of their lives, the mothers would have preferred to be full time at home with the kids. Most people, that's what most women are telling me. Um, and and I think actually that a lot of people, when they get into the minimalism thing and tiny houses, living in a van, living in a boat. I'm saying boat because that's actually the most common off-grid solution here in Norway. Um, And people don't think about this so much, but um, a boat is an off-grid home, you know. But anyway, it's like people are thinking, should I move into that, that rat race? Should I join the rat race, or should I live in my van? And I'm like, yeah, go live in your van. I think that's a better life. Go live in your boat. Go and get a tiny house. It's not, for me, I would rather live in a very tiny house without debt than to be a slave to the system. You know, um, the problem is, of course, that it can be tricky to bring up children in such a setting. Yeah. Now, this is not like a big, complicated topic. It's just, I just wanted to share my opinion on this and kind of respond to that comment I got at least a year ago. Um, so let's see here at the chat. We always have such a wonderful conversation here, except when the flat earthers come in here and they, yeah, we have all seen that before. Let's see here. Yeah, why is there a B in depth? Why is there a G in gnome? In Norwegian, we say gnome with a G. Eric Hoff says, I live in Oklahoma. We've been conditioned to live with nothing all our lives. We, the poor working class, are only paid enough to keep the wolves fed for a month. This is a right to work state. Huh. I've been watching and following some YouTubers about retirement investments for retirement and so on. Because let's face it, nobody wants to work until they die. We all understand that's the plan. The elites, the governments, that's their plan. They want people to work until they die. That seems quite obvious now. But nobody wants that. So you have to save up some money, right? But anyway, at least one of these channels, they are making videos like, can I retire with $10 million? And I'm like, yeah, you can. But who has $10 million? I mean, and $1 million, you can retire with $1 million, no problem at all. But who has $1 million? It's like a tiny, tiny. Is it even a percent? 1%? Is it even 1% of the population in the USA that has saved up $1 million? It's like most people, the vast majority of people, have saved up nothing when they reach retirement age. Not because they're lazy or stupid or wasting money, but because they haven't been paid enough through their working life, and they've been taxed quite severely. Now, people don't think about the taxes so much, and it makes me unpopular when I talk about it. I don't fucking care, because people need to hear that they have been conditioned to think that paying somewhere between 30 and 50% of your income in taxes is fine. That's not fucking fine. That's sick. Shouldn't be like that. An effective state that takes care of their sick and elderly provide schools and hospitals and so on, shouldn't tax people more than 10%. And there have been books written about this, about the waste, but that's a different topic. 10% would have been okay, 10, maybe 15% flat tax rate that kicks in when you're earning above the minimum, minimum for sustaining a good quality of life. Um, so, yeah, let's move on here. Thank you, Laura. Yeah, exactly. Ricardo says you get to you get paid to buy a house. You almost get paid. Yeah, it's almost for free. Bykle, Tokke, Fyresdal, and places like that. The only jobs around are usually heavy equipment, farming, logging. Yeah. Kevin says, I prefer living in a tiny home by myself than being forced to house a migrant. Oh, I didn't see that coming. Yeah, okay. Let's see here. Yeah, Laura says, obviously, I think we all agree here. I believe women should have the right to vote and get educated. Yes, of course. However, women should have the opportunity to be a stay at home if she has a family. Yes, I agree. And you know what? I think that the father should have that opportunity as well. It shouldn't be tied to the sex, except the first. How do you say? During the breastfeeding time, the babies. That's obviously you need a mother there. Then. Oh, thank you so much. Somewhere in the Rockies. That's so kind of you. 37, debt free, own my house, free and clear of all rentals. I am impressed. And you're writing. I started small, living in a tent, made 30K a year, no education. I can retire right now, live simple. Everyone wants to start at finish. Yeah, some wise words there. It can be done. Taxation is theft. Yeah, it is. It is. Or you could say taxation is like someone comes up to you on the street and they're saying that you have to buy this thing I have here, or else I will put you in a cage. That's actually how taxation works. Because even if you check out of everything, you don't even drive on the roads, they would still come after you and have you pay taxes. And if you don't, eventually they will put you in prison. Yeah. Let's see here. Okay. Yeah. So, I'm someone who has worked too much, too hard through my life. And I think that's been driven largely by society that we live in and the high cost of living. And I'm not alone. It's very common. You get trapped, so to speak. You get trapped, and I kind of I kind of feel that I've lost out on opportunities, not for making money, but for, experiences in life. And that's the regret that I hear, old people, they have these regrets, why didn't I travel there? Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? They never regret working, that they didn't work enough. They never regret that. But, it's like I get so fed up with these people that are saying, "Oh, you don't have to work so much. You should just live your life and travel." And yeah, welcome to, that's not how life works, because you need to eat and you need a place to live, and you likely getting taxed. Uh, your tax rate is perverse. At least if you start making some good money. So, I mean, I, uh, uh, yeah, I don't care. I'll just say it. I make good money, not from YouTube. YouTube is a joke. But I'm a novelist. I have novels published in several countries. But even with the good income, I don't feel that. Um, and it's not like I can just go and buy all the stuff I want. Far from it. And that's like it's like this year. I have extra taxes this year. Yeah, I got a nice Christmas letter from the tax people, so I'll be paying extra taxes this year in advance. Um, and that means that I'll have to put even more money aside each month to pay those taxes, those extra taxes, in addition to my income taxes. And I can't move out of Norway because then you have the exit tax. So I don't care if people think it's annoying when I say this, at least here in Norway. I don't fucking care, because they need to hear it. And the only reason why people go along with it, the only reason why people accept it, is the following: the taxes are taken out of and removed from your wages before you receive your wages. I can promise you that's your employer doing that. And I'm my own employer, so I do that. I can promise you that if you yourself had to take the money, the tax money, out of your wages every month, we would not have had this very high, perversely high tax rate, because it's so much more visible then. You ask people, how much do you earn? And they just refer to what they are being paid after tax. And then they think when if they get money back from the tax people, because they think it's a gift. But yeah, so that is a problem. It's a good argument for creating an alternative economy, by the way. Is a question here: is your royal family taxed? I don't think so. And they, maybe you know already, I do not support having a royal family. I think Norway should be a republic, and they get millions upon hundreds of millions of kroner, so tens of millions of dollars every year. These people, that they can just spend. It's sick. Um, yeah, in the USA you have to have health insurance, and You know what? You have to have that in Norway too. And that's the socialists on TikTok and so on. They don't like to talk about that, do they? Yeah, I have health insurance. Um, and the reason why I want health insurance is that if you if you get sick and it's not critical, then there are months to wait. But if you have health insurance and you can use a private hospital. Um, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, and there's an attitude in many European countries that I hope you won't find in like the USA. And the attitude it's so provoking. It's so provoking. Um, it's the attitude is that if you get successful here and you make a lot of money, it's not because of you, it's because of society that you live in. It's because it's such a great society to that's the attitude. And you hear these people saying that, and the following argument is that because you made money, it's not you made money, but that's not because of your talent and hard work. It's because of the society that made it possible. So you owe society your money. That's why you should pay all these all this in taxes. It's a sick and disturbed way of thinking. um, Mike is asking, are there any financial organizations in Norway that are helping young people find affordable housing? No, not that I know of. You have banks that they have a new kind of system now that they introduced that I don't really know how it works, but you kind of it's not a mortgage to buy a flat. It's like you get the flat, but the bank has a lot more ownership in the flat or something like that. They're not giving anything away for free. And at the same time, these banks are making millions upon, well, millions, billions of money in surplus every year, which, yeah, they're crime syndicates, basically. Yeah. So again, back to the topic here. I think that we are being conditioned to live small lives where we should not ever be able to own something like a car, like a flat, like a house. Um, you shouldn't have high expectations. And if you travel, you need to travel in the cheapest way possible. And what people do is, and I can understand this and sympathize with it, is that they are saying to themselves, you know what, I'll just live in a very simple way. And if I, instead of traveling by airplane to some other country, I will go hiking. I would go hiking anyway. But, um, you know, it's people live small because they want to be free, but it shouldn't be like that. You should be able to, as I said, to buy a house and to buy a car, a good car. Not doesn't need to be a flashy car. Those are stupid anyway. But you should be able to do that. But it's just a dream. For most people, young people now, it's just a dream. Unless you have rich parents, you're not going to get into the property market. So Norway has become. Now I talk a lot about Norway here because I live in Norway. But it's most European countries now. That's the situation, at least in Western Europe, Western and Northern Europe. Um, yeah. What you pay for your pension? Well, we pay quite a lot in taxes. I don't trust the pension system. I don't think that. Let me put it this way: I would not be surprised if there will be no pension when I get to that age. I wouldn't be surprised. Her business says I would work any job I had to if I could live in Norway. Well, I will say Norway is very nice. You know, the crime rate is still quite low. And if you're not in the cities, you won't really have crime. Um, and it's Norway is mainly wilderness, so that's nice, And we have a long, long coastline. So if you like sailing, Norway is perfect. So there are lots of good things about Norway, in spite of our politicians and the system with the very high taxes. And people are not left out in the street. We don't have homeless people here. Well, actually, there are maybe some people who are homeless by their own choice. There are, but you won't see people like that here. Um, so it's nice in that way. It is nice, but yeah. Um, oh, you've been there 7 times. Okay. Yeah. There are a few homeless in Norway, but not really. Yeah. Well, um, there are homeless people who I know for a fact that there is a home offered to everyone in Norway. It's not like people are left out in the street. So there is a roof and a bed for you. But there are people who still stay out and they are out in the streets. My guess is that's drug related, and they people who are in a state of they choose not to be in a house, so because of drugs probably. And also we have uh, you would call them gypsies before, but that's not correct. But beggars coming from other countries to sit on the streets in Norway and beg. Um, yeah, so we have that. Uh, yeah. Yeah, homeless. Yeah, the underachiever files. In Germany, I saw a lot of homeless people. Sad, really. Yeah, it is very sad, and I think it's so unnecessary. I'll never forget when I was in Los Angeles and I saw crazy people in the streets, people talking to themselves, and some of them obviously on drugs and so on. It was horrible, and it shouldn't be like that. Then in those cases, they need to be taken care of and to get help. And before anyone says that, well, that's why you need to have taxes. No, no, we don't need to pay 40% taxes to have a well-functioning society where we take care of people who have problems. Yeah. But anyway, I'm going out and to film a video for my main channel when we get some daylight. So, yeah, Laura says in the US, millions of workers are 2 missed paychecks away from being homeless. Yeah. Shouldn't be like that, you know. And I know what you know what I will say also, and this is quite important, in my opinion, and my background is in economics, by the way. When you see people saying that, oh, Elon Musk has so much money, and you have poor people, take money from Elon Musk to help the poor people. That's not how it works, and it will never work that way. That's it's a problem with the system. It's a system problem. It's not a money problem. And it's very tempting. I guess it's very tempting to blame rich people, but making rich people a little less rich will not improve the lives of poor people. That's it's never it has never worked that way. People have tried and it has failed. We call that communism. Some people call it socialism. It has never worked. And well, if you look to the Scandinavian countries, yes, the tax level here is sick, and it shouldn't be like that. But we don't really take like it's not like taxing the rich is funding the poor. That's not how it works here. That's a bigger discussion, I guess. But this is a system problem, not a money problem. And before you tax the rich even more, consider taxing the poor less. They never talk about that, do they? I find that very interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. And yeah, people have opinions about this, but I will say it's funny how people's opinions on all of this seems to change as their position in society changes. And other authors, many authors, when they start out, they're quite, to the left, socialists. I was never that, but I have noticed that some of the most successful authors here in Norway, they get so passionate about avoiding paying taxes when they get rich. They get very creative. So it's funny how that works, but anyway, we will leave it at that. Okay, we'll talk soon.